broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. Before we get started, we want to make sure that you can hear us okay. So if you can hear me speaking, please raise your hand, and that lets me know that the audio is working. Great. Thank you. And you can go ahead and lower your hand as we will use that function to call for stakeholder feedback. Welcome and thank you for attending the State Board of Accountancy's stakeholder meeting via webinar today. The date is April 19th, 2022, and the time is 10:30 a.m. Before we get started, we would like to introduce the staff members from the Division of Professions and Occupations that are present. My name is Darcy Magnuson, and I'm a regulatory analyst with the division. Also attending is Karen Phelan, Program Director of the Board, and Elena Kemp, Regulatory Coordinator. Due to concerns surrounding COVID-19, the division has transitioned to a platform that is 100% virtual, and we appreciate your flexibility. As many of you have been to DORA stakeholder meetings before, we would like to reiterate the importance of your comments today. DORA makes decisions every day that may affect your life and your business, so your input is vital in the rulemaking process. Throughout this process, our goal is to create regulations that clarify and explain legislation, ensure minimum competency to enter and continue to practice, and provide only what is absolutely necessary for consumer protection without creating unnecessary barriers to the marketplace. Your input will be part of the information that goes to the board as it considers adopting revisions to the rules. More specifically, today we will be discussing multiple proposed changes to the State Board of Accountancy's rules pursuant to the rule review that is mandated by Section 24 for 103.3 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. The purpose of the rule review is to assess the continuing need, appropriateness, and cost-effectiveness of the rules to determine if they should be continued in their current form, modified, or repealed. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the board's website by close of business tomorrow under the Public Notices tab. As this stakeholder meeting is held solely by webinar, please raise your hand by using the hand icon if you would like to speak, and we will unmute your line so you will be heard by everyone, or you can type your comment in the question section and we will read it aloud. Before we start taking comments, we would ask that anyone providing comments please state your name and the name of the organization that you represent, if any. Feel free to provide either general comments on the rule changes or specific comments on the proposed language. And please limit your comments to no more than 3 to 5 minutes and try not to repeat something that was already said. Stating you're in full agreement with someone else works just fine, and we will note that. If you are using audio through your computer, please remember to put any phones on vibrate or turn them off. And whether you are using computer or phone audio, try to keep background noises to a minimum when speaking. So before we start taking stakeholder comments, I just wanted to point out, to give you a little bit more information about this process. So this is the second stakeholder meeting that we are having regarding these proposed changes. The board initially started looking at these rules last year in December, saw them again in January, then we took them to the two stakeholders, back to the board at its last meeting, now to stakeholders again to get additional feedback, and then the last step in the process will be the rulemaking hearing at the board's next meeting. So today you are seeing the rules with the board's questions and stakeholder feedback incorporated within. So Elena, if you can scroll back up to the top, and then we'll just go through, highlight the additional information that we've received, and also some questions from the board. So with that, the recording from the last meeting is posted on the board's website. You can keep going, Elena. So you can hear more specifically, we walked through each of the changes, and I just wanted to go through now the additional information that we've received. And also just a flag, so thanks for stopping here. So you can see in the comment section on the side, we include the statute just so it's easier for people to see, going back and forth between the statute and the rule. And then where you see a comment received from stakeholders, for example, the COCPA comment that was received, we included that in the rules, And then below that are the notes from the board, where the board agreed to either make the changes or not. So hopefully that helps when you're trying to track the proposed changes as you read through the document. So go ahead and keep going, Elena. And why I'm having Elena scroll through, I want to make sure that stakeholders see the additional information that the board discussed at its last meeting. So that way the board in some places asked for more stakeholder feedback. Is that a new, the COCPA, Elena, is that a newer one? Retain the original language?
Yes.
Okay.
This comment was recently.
So that's a comment that has not been viewed yet by the board. What was additional comment that was received from the association? So I wanted to point that one out. Okay. This is also a new comment. And here's another new comment. And the reason why I'm going through these, I want to make sure that the people who are participating today see them. So if you have any comments regarding these additional new comments, that you have an opportunity to weigh in before it goes back to the board. You can see this is a new comment, the one that's the cursor is over. So for this particular, I was just trying to track to see if there were any additional questions from the board there. And there you can see, so hopefully you're able to track the back and forth between the board and stakeholders. So the board did have some questions during its meeting in March. And then here's feedback from the association with respect to the board's questions. So go ahead and pause here, Elena. Yeah, because this was something that the board wanted additional feedback regarding for presentations. So if anyone has any more feedback regarding this when we call for stakeholder comments, I just wanted to flag this. This is something that the board talked about pretty extensively during its last meeting and was specifically seeking comments regarding how these hours should be counted. I think you can go ahead, Elena. There's another new comment. So the comment that's under the cursor right now was a specific question from the board to stakeholders with respect to the feedback received from the COCPA. I wanted to flag that. So there's a new comment, and then right below is another question from the board. And we've had a couple people join. Just want to make sure you know that right now we're just walking through the rules to highlight the stakeholder comments we've received so far, as well as the board's specific questions or comments to stakeholders, as this is the second stakeholder meeting and the board has seen these rules proposed changes now 3 times. So we want to make sure that we get the stakeholder feedback from you today, or you can always submit written comments as well. Once we're done going through these proposed changes and comments, then we will ask for stakeholder feedback. And we are almost to the end, so I apologize. These rules are pretty long. Okay, so that takes us to the end. At this point in time, if you would like to provide stakeholder feedback, you can do that by raising your hand and we will unmute your line so it's recorded and everyone else can hear it. Or you can type into the question function and we will read your comments out loud. I do show that Rebecca Campbell, you have your hand raised. You're self-muted. When you unmute, we should be able to hear you, which we
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think what I heard earlier was you had a question about the panel presentation and how to calculate CPE.
Correct.
And I thought you were asking a question about a recommendation for how to calculate it. We work with a lot of presenters, people who are trying to claim CPE for teaching, and there's quite a bit of work that goes into preparing a presentation. So the recommendation is that they would be able to claim CPE credit without having to divide up CPE credit by the number of people in the panel.
Okay. So what I think that the board also discussed preparation, and then of course, like you said, how it gets divided up, or if it gets divided up during the actual presentation.
Because they're there for their entire part of the presentation and they're participating. So it just, when you divide it up, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. And just for purposes of the record and for the board, I know your name is Rebecca Campbell. Are you representing yourself, or are you representing any entity?
The Colorado Society of CPAs.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and lower your hand. If you want to say anything else, just raise your hand again. Does anyone else have any feedback or questions regarding the proposed changes? If you do, now is your chance to either speak on the record or type in written comments. Crystal Dorsey, I have unmuted you, and looks like you're unmuted on your end, so we should be able to hear you.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Crystal Dorsey, and I am an audit manager with the Office of the State Auditor. And I had provided a written comment, which is incorporated for section 1.11. I believe that's going to be, I'm trying to get to my document to point you to what page, around page 40, possibly. Regarding the peer review comments, and I know that my comments had been provided to the board, and I would be happy to answer any questions that the board may have or offer any feedback. Specifically, the Office of the State Auditor utilizes the National State Auditors Association for our peer review requirements. And certainly the organizations, the authorized peer review organizations that are already in the Yellow Book, vetted by the Comptroller General as part of government auditing standards, include a more comprehensive list. So my comment was to just pose the question if the board would want to consider adding a more comprehensive list as part of their approved peer review sponsoring organizations.
Thank you for that. And like you said, we do have it included there. And then the board will hear your comments today too, because this recording will be provided to the board before the rulemaking hearing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So while we wait to see if anyone else wants to provide any feedback regarding the proposed changes, the rulemaking hearing is scheduled for May 11th, 2022 at the board's regularly scheduled board meeting. At that time, stakeholders will have a final opportunity to testify before the board begins its deliberation regarding the proposed changes. If you would like to submit written comments in advance of that rulemaking hearing, you can do that by sending them to the rulemaking inbox, which is listed on the notice for today's meeting and also on the calendar. And that's Dora_DPO_rulemaking@state.co.us. It's better to submit them sooner so that we can get them to the board. We send all of the information to the board in advance of the hearing so that the board can be adequately prepared. So just wanted to make sure that people are aware that this is not your final opportunity to be heard by the board, that you still have a chance to submit written comments or testify at the rulemaking hearing. We'll go ahead and wait a couple more minutes to see if anyone else would like to provide feedback. So we'll pause until, we'll wait just until 11 o'clock. I show it's 10:57 on my computer. So we'll wait until 11 o'clock on my computer. And I apologize, I will not be able to pronounce your name correctly. I will do my best. Padmanabha Acharya, really appreciate the due process being followed for amending the rules and due opportunity being provided for all stakeholders. Thank you for that, and thank you for being here today. It's important that we get feedback from stakeholders during this process. Okay, I show it is 11 o'clock on my computer, and I don't see any other hands raised. We haven't received any other written comments. So at this point in time, I will go ahead and wrap up the meeting. Thank you again for participating in today's meeting. All comments and program recommendations will be provided to the board for review and consideration before the board deliberates on the final version of the rules at the permanent rulemaking hearing, which is scheduled for May 11th, 2022. As I mentioned, you are welcome to submit written comments up until that date to the rulemaking inbox, just Dora_DPO_rulemaking@state.co.us. And you're also welcome to testify at that rulemaking hearing before the board does its final deliberation. So that concludes this stakeholder meeting. Thank you again for your participation, and we are going to end the webinar now.